Sure. My name is Francis Gallick. I got involved in telecom back in 2007 with Verizon. Spent a bunch of years there building some IoT products. Um, Left there and worked with digital signage and real-time bidding platforms for advertising. After that, joined John in building the future of IoT with this smart SIM technology that we now have.
Love it. Good stuff. John, go ahead with your intro, man.
Hey, Chad, good to talk to you again. And John, I'm John Scolacci. I'm the CEO of, I should put my last name on the bottom. Just realized that I didn't do that.
We'll edit that out too.
All right, so we'll try that again. Hey, Chad, good to talk to you again. My name is John Scolacci. I'm the CEO and founder of Helix Wireless. I know we've spoken before, but I spent 15 years at Verizon. I started Helix with Francis to really kind of look at how we can change what's happening in the market with how people connect for data, specifically for IoT devices. So we have a very unique approach, applying multi-tenant or multi-IMSI SIM cards globally, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, no, thanks guys for joining us, for joining me actually, because we want to learn more about IoT devices, and connectivity is going to be a huge thing in the future for just smart cities. We talk about smart cities a lot. We talk about where they're going to need to improve connectivity within the cities in order to get real-time data, right? And one of the biggest issues is connectivity. Even though you got a cell tower sitting there, maybe a couple hundred feet away, doesn't mean you're always going to have the best signal strength. And it sounds like you guys are working on really enhancing that connectivity to devices that we're going to eventually integrate into smart cities. Can you tell me a little bit more about why the industry why doesn't Verizon, I know you probably can't talk about too much, but why doesn't Verizon, AT&T have a better network out there? Francis, go ahead. You answer that first. Hold on. I'll go with Francis on this one first, because I know what John's going to tie up all the time. No, I'm just kidding. Francis, you're the tech guy from what I understand. I'm just kidding.
Oh, why they don't have a better network is kind of a loaded question, right? I mean,
it is a loaded question. That's
a pretty damn good network they have today, both of them. Cellular networks are complex because besides for the fact that you're just trying to connect things in real time, so there's a very low threshold of failure rate. If you're bad one time, you're done. So you have to be perfect all the time, which is very difficult to do. So some of the cellular connectivity issues that you're experiencing is somebody who just, that network wasn't good, and you're saying, oh man, this network stinks. That's how high the threshold is for mobile networks. But additionally, the growth in mobile networks has really strained the actual towers, the actual networks, right? That's why Verizon and AT&T or T-Mobile, they put so much money, reinvest so much money in building these networks, because the growth has been exponential. You went from 2005, it'll say, to 2015, and everybody and their mother and their dog and their house got internet, right? And 4G internet versus 3G, then 4G, now 5G. So it's this constant demand of perfection, and on top of that, the growth. So it's a hard thing to do in general. But I think, just to be fair, what we're trying to do is leverage the best of all of them to get to that threshold of constant connectivity. So you don't come to us and say, man, that Helix wireless network stinks. Right? We're going to be above that, because we're going to be leveraging everybody's.
Like it. Good answer. John?
Yeah, I mean, what he said, right? I mean, I think that was pretty good. When we look at when we look at kind of network penetration, things that most people don't think about when they go to the store and they buy a new phone, right? They're not like, I wonder if I change carriers, how will the network actually be in my house, right?
Yeah.
And so it's super hard for when you talk about being better, it's super hard for an MNO, a mobile network operator, to go, well, that guy's house is made of brick, and that's not going to get as good service. right? Because it's made of brick, right? And so let's position the tower a little bit differently. Like they don't have that flexibility, right? Because they can't necessarily move the tower simply because you put an addition on your house or you moved into an older house, right? That's just not the case. But if you look at the propensity to provide multiple networks, you may have a different network that's coming from a different angle, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at a triangulation, right, you may have a tower to the north and the east and the south, and all of a sudden now that one network that maybe was good at one point when you lived a mile away, and now when your office isn't really performing, maybe you're hitting the same tower for this example. Using our SIM card, you'll be able to grab whatever tower is available for you, and that really helps provide a better quality from an instance of really just talking about connectivity. Do you have signal? Is your signal good enough to do whatever it is you may need to do, right? And I think that's really when we look at multi-location deployments. You're looking at one to many, right? One solution to many different places, right? So things like retail failover, things like utilities, smart cities, as you mentioned in kind of the kickoff here. I think that's really where we can provide either as good or better from a connectivity option than a single MNO.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, we need that because as I'm a user, a customer, I pay Verizon a lot of money every month for all my kids' phones and things like that. And when I walk out of my house and I can't download something in literally seconds, I'm frustrated. I'm like, what? In my house, I can do it right away because the Wi-Fi just clicks on, boom, done. It's in there in seconds, right? But man, if there's any lag, and I'm thinking right to myself that I got to switch networks. These guys suck. That's just the way I thought. I think about it. Like I'm spending this money. I want it now. You guys are spot on with all that. And the way you guys are, I call it bridging the gap, is something that is super unique to the industry. It sounds like, and that's where you guys are fulfilling that void that a lot of people need, especially when we're going to be talking a little bit more about smart city stuff. So why do you think that the bigger companies haven't filled the gap so far? What makes you guys so unique and so different from anybody else? John, you want to answer that, or Francis?
Yeah, I think so. I think the first thing is real estate, right? I mean, we have to think. You talk about solving the problem. The problem is a little bit more global than just, hey, I want to put a tower there for whatever reason. Is there enough pops? Is there enough people for you to build a tower there? It's the first thing, right? Because you're talking about a major infrastructure investment. You're talking about ongoing maintenance. It's a real cost driver, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just one tower. You got to put a tower every 2-3 miles, something like that. So now you're talking about, is it worth getting out there? And to Fran's point, when we looked at the proliferation of 4G, which goes back to 2010s, right? Was that when that kind of started? You saw the network capacity go from here to here, right? And that same thing is going to happen with 5G, right? Because that one tower can do so much more than what it used to do. Going back in time. Like a question I like to ask people sometimes is, Chad, what was your first phone?
Flip phone. Beeper. Something like that.
Right.
Technically it was a beeper.
You had a beeper, right? You had the two-way pager, right? You
Seriously, right? It was a beeper.
So when you think about the network capacity that was there at that time, right? Yeah. I'm not going to say the year because I don't want to date you, right? Last year when you got your beeper, the network capacity that was required to run a network of pagers versus a network of people watching Netflix and YouTube, and then businesses that are doing asset tracking and people that are running a food truck off of wireless and digital out of home, folks that are pushing ads in real time to folks in Times Square that are, hopefully buying their products and all those sorts of things. You're talking about a capacity of ones and O's for text messaging, like literally 1 and 0, right? Yeah. How many do you want? I want 10. That's many, right? Too many characters. And then you're talking about sending, high definition video to 4,000 people who are all they're all watching TikTok 5 feet from each other, right?
Yeah.
Society this day. and they're sitting there on their phones all day, and they're uploading and they're streaming and they're on a FaceTime call, or they're on a meeting, or they're on a call like this, right?
Yeah.
They're doing an interview while they're walking down the street or sitting in their office next to the street, right? And so when you look at the amount of bandwidth that's required, and from the perspective of the guy who walks out of his house and he wants to go into Disney Plus for his kids, right? I do not get paid for that, but he wants to go to Disney Plus for his kids, so that they can sit in the car and, while you go to the food store, you're going to visit grandma, something like that, right? For you, it's super frustrating because in that moment you're like, oh, it's just what I want, right? And so when you look at the amount of effort that goes in to provide that experience and the amount of dollars that go into that, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars a year in new site builds and in maintenance and in all of that, right? So when you talk about getting it better than that, I mean, that's super scary, right?
Yeah.
It's super scary. So I'll let Frank kind of chime in too, right? Of course. And that's why we're here.
That's it.
Yes. Well, and piggyback on your question, that was, the thing that we want to do with our solutions is not just try to be a carrier, but to be a full solution for people who are building products. So you're building a new product. It's not about, I'm going to put a tower up and try to get you a network. I'm going to look at your solution, figure out what you need. Do you need CAD-M or NB-IoT, or are you looking at the full suite of 5G services, whatever it may be? What do you need? Because if we can configure it right, we can kind of work around that capacity threshold that John's talking about. If I put your sewer caps on LTE, right, and you're getting 4G speeds, and now you're competing with all the other 4G devices out there, right? You're putting yourself at a disadvantage for no reason. You should be sitting there at a CAD-M or something with a lower power threshold, and you can last longer. You have less interference with your connectivity. So there's an idea here about an IoT, about utilizing the tools to create better solutions. So that also helps the MNOs, because now the MNOs don't have to invest another $1 billion to put up 5 more towers, right? They don't have to create as much capacity because you're using the right solution for the application, if that makes sense.
It's exactly going back to bridging the gap. That's what you guys do. You do the connectivity with from what I'm just going to relay it. From all the towers coming into one place, you're connecting to all those and just bringing a more powerful solution to the, I guess, the network, you want to say, whatever you want to call it, through Helix. That's awesome. Now, how are you guys looking at the smart city future? Like, how are you looking to target that? How are you looking to grow into that space?
That's a good question.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Fran. Fran's got it.
You're good.
I think when you look at smart city, it's about partnership. It's not about conquering the thing by yourself. You can't create a lot of the new applications that are built that are applicable to a smart city are an individual solution. And what you need to do is look at the holistic picture. So for instance, if you're monitoring water flowing through the sewers and it's a big heavy rain in New York City, and all of a sudden the sewers start backing up, well, you may need to divert trucks on the road to open up a lane so you can get your repair truck out there. You may have to change the lights, right? Okay, that's one thing. What about if there's a flood and it's a really hot day and everyone's air conditionings are on, and now you need more power for that part of the grid, but you also have to do some type of diversion to the water and you need power there as well. If I can use technology to level out the power distribution, just as one instance, you can all become much more effective and much more efficient and save downtime or outages. It's about putting together multiple solutions. And so as Helix, what we look to do is partner with the best. We find the best solutions, we find the best platforms, and we try to say, okay, guys, let's all work together. You're going to use our connectivity because we're the best in connectivity, but you're the best at parking spot monitoring, right? You're the best camera guys, and you're the best water meters, and let's put it all together and really present, because it's not Smart cities are a lot bigger than any individual company can do. I mean, even the big MNOs who've tried to do this on their own fail because they can't. Nobody can do it all by themselves.
Go ahead, John. You want to add to that?
Yeah, man. So a couple things, right? So I mean, I love this conversation because it's so big, right? It's tremendous. When you look at mass transportation, it's a great example, right? So if you live in a city or near a city, or there's a train or a bus or whatever it is, right? There's always the question that you have: if you get there a minute before the bus is supposed to be there, did you miss the bus?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're sitting here and you're like, well, maybe the bus is late. Maybe I missed the bus. I don't actually know. Should I call an Uber so I get to work on time? Right. So if you can track that asset, and now I get to the little shelter that they have, or the bus stop, whatever it is, and you could put, the M95 is 2 minutes out. Right. Well, now I'm good. I know I just got 2 minutes to wait. Right.
Yeah.
But if it says all of a sudden it's 55 minutes out, well, now you either missed it or it's a massive delay and you need to figure out something else. So moving people is part of it. Another piece of it is garbage. We just had a conversation with a tremendously large garbage disposal organization. And so the question is how do I move my folks that are out here picking up the trash from A to B and pick up the most trash, right?
Efficiency,
so, is there a garbage bin that's been overflowing for the weekend, and I want to make that number one, right?
Yeah.
Or am I going to drive past 5 bins that are pretty full, and I want to pick them up on the way there as well, right? Or am I going to drive past 5 bins that are pretty much empty, and I don't want to spend time stopping there and picking up, almost nothing for that same amount of time? So you're talking about, going green because you're using less fuel. You're talking about managing your employees' time better. You're talking about a better experience for your client, who most likely is paying you to pick up their garbage, right? All sorts of those things, right? As you start to get into it. And that's just 2 additional examples to a couple of friends. And then there's even just, it's not so much smart city, but it's consumer product goods, right?
Yeah.
You take your kids to the ice cream store. Do they have the ice cream sandwiches that you want? Do they know that they're out of stock? Do they even know? Right? Are they in the back? Are they in the cooler? Are they on the truck on the way there? Like we don't know. Right? So now you wind up going to the store. They don't have what you need. Now you go to another store just to go get your ice cream, right? And so by deploying things like smart coolers, you can enable that first store that you went to, the local store around the corner, to have the products that you need when you go there, because they'll know what's out of stock. The information goes right to the distributor. Distributor goes, okay, we need 10 of these. Let's make sure we get them out there, right? So it's not even just talking about people and places and things, but it's also how we transact, right? Mm-hmm. What is the effort that you have to put in as a consumer to go give XYZ organization your money for that good or service, right?
That's some crazy intelligence you can provide. I mean, look at it. It's so granular that you're talking about. I mean, some store having a soda pop, in their fridge, and whether it's there or not, what I mean? That's how granular you're talking about getting this system. That's pretty incredible, guys. That's crazy. I mean,
and then there's another layer to that too, Chad, just to touch on that real quick before we vacate this topic. But imagine you as the product manufacturer, that my product tastes the best at 26 degrees or something like that, right? You can now manage your experience as the consumer to know that every time I go get my ice cream or my soda from XYZ location, it tastes better, right? It's better. It's not half melted. It's not, frozen with the icicles on it, right? Nobody likes the frozen icicle ice cream, right? So it's about providing that full experience, right? From manufacturing all the way to consumption. And again, not a smart city example per se, but I think it's
it is 100%
consumer play, right?
It's a smart city thing. We're talking about tax based, right? It's all about tax revenue. Think about that. How you can how you can not monetize it, but you can monitor it and understand your tax base and what's coming into your city. Yep. It's all smart city, man. You're talking about some serious. how much money do we make off ice cream? Oh, here's our tax
Yeah.
base. Here's what we brought in. I mean, who knows what the potential is there to do anything we want. That's the greatest thing about technology. Um, switching topics, sort of, but going into where I see you guys being able to really thrive is really into like project management, like you talked about, asset management, advanced asset management, giving really granular intelligence, which I keep coming back to, time to market, improving manufacturing, supply chain. Man, you're talking about, I think on your website you say everything, right?
We do.
You connect everything.
We do.
You got it. There's you guys. I'm talking about bridging the gap, but you're like, yeah, we do everything. I like it. Where do you think that your so there's some technology, Wi-Fi technology, right? There's this Wi-Fi stuff out of Europe. I don't know the name. It starts with L, Lerex or Lenerex or whatever. It's a LoRaWAN. Yes, LoRaWAN.
Right.
How are you guys going to compete in that space? Is that a whole different world that you don't even have to think about?
Yeah. I don't know, friend. You want to tackle that one? I know you're a big LoRa guy.
Well, I mean, when you're connecting IoT, the Internet of Things, it's everything that's connected to the internet. And the cellular part that we do is a very specific part of that internet. But there's Wi-Fi, there's Bluetooth, there's Zigbee, there's LoRaWAN. There's different types of ways to connect devices. And they all have their pros and cons. The thing that you see is if I want to put a sensor in a parking spot to know if there's a car there or not, I might embed that into the asphalt, and it's going to take, it has a little battery in there. It's barely ever going to pass data. It would make no sense as a cellular provider to connect that to our network. One, we're going to pull more power from it than it needs. Two, you're going to pay, like the economics of it don't make sense because it's so little. So companies like that need an alternative to connect to the internet. And they're not going to put a Wi-Fi router outside. They're going to use networks like LoRaWAN or some type of really, CBRS or whatever it is to connect devices on a different plane. I would just like we talk about smart cities being about partnership, right?
Yeah.
Even on the network side, we're more about partnership. We know when we're the right fit or not, and that's kind of where that's at.
I like it. John?
Yeah, I'm pretty good with the explanation. I think it makes sense, and I support it. I think when we look at tiny data, that's what Fran's really talking about. He's talking about bits and bytes, not kilobits and megabits, right? Once you get into kind of the megabits, that's where cellular usually makes more sense, or in things that you really need to be connected more than just when you're on the network. So things that move is a good example, right? If I'm building a network here and all of my connectivity is inside here, then okay, you're good. But what happens when you're outside, right? What happens when you're passing through, right? How do you maintain and manage those types of connections? And a perfect example is panic buttons or asset tracking, right? If you have, for example, a bus that you want to give the driver a panic button in case anything bad happens. You have a medical emergency, something worse than that, right? You never know. You're going to want to make sure that person has connectivity, right? So even if you have a LoRa network that's covering the 80%, right? Probably still want to have a backup, right? And that's really where the cellular kind of comes in, is when you're at the yard, maybe you're outside of the main coverage area, or if you have to go for maintenance, right? You're outside the main coverage area, and that's really important to look at kind of that standard of connectivity and what does that mean to you? Is your application mission critical, right? Going back to the ice cream, probably not, right?
Yes, it is.
No one's gonna get hurt if you don't have ice cream at the right temperature, right? But at the same time, if you have somebody who's transporting, something that's perishable, right? You may want to track that throughout its progression to make sure that when it gets there, it's in the same condition that it needed to be in, right, for delivery. or something in the case of a panic button where you want to make sure if that person's having an emergency or some kind of issue, you get that connectivity through, right? So it's kind of that redundancy as well. Even if it is a small connection, but you do need to have, an extra layer of security.
So that would help us with dependability, accountability, like you have a backup system next to the LoRaWAN, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
WAN.
What is it?
LoRaWAN.
LoRaWAN?
LoRaWAN.
LoRaWAN. Got it. I think this is live, by the way. I think we're on LinkedIn. I think I messed this thing up, by the way, just so you both know.
Awesome.
LoRaWAN. Yes. So LoRaWAN is the Wi-Fi sitting out there that's connectivity, doesn't require a lot of data. Is that correct? It doesn't pull a lot of data. Where okay, it sounds like
yeah.
I'm trying to understand the difference between LoRaWAN and what you guys are doing, and
so let me kind of dumb sales guy for you.
Dumb it down for me, please.
Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi equals LoRaWAN. Cellular's not.
Got it.
If in your house you're on Wi-Fi, right? Because you put a router there, it's there. When you go to your neighbor's house, you may or may not have connectivity there on your network, right?
Yeah.
But you may have connectivity on his Wi-Fi network, right? If you have access to it. But while you're traveling between house A and house B, right, you may need some connectivity. And that's where cellular comes in.
Got it. Okay. Still bridging the gap like we're just talking about. How do you think we can help cities fix water distribution? Now, water leaks are a massive problem in these cities. They're old systems. They're losing money on meters. They're losing money. They're using radio frequency on their meters. Do we need to be using radio frequency meters anymore? Like what? Any insight into that? Which one, Francis?
It's a big question.
I love big questions.
All right. Well, I mean, you're trying to tackle a few different issues there. The number one issue is that they're old. There's a lot of old systems, particularly in the Northeast, like where we are. You got systems when even our electrics grid went up over 100 years ago, right? So it's just they need, just like anything that's old, you need to rehab it or you got to replace it. There's no way around that. Now, getting smarter about collecting revenue by using newer technologies to monitor the water. Yeah, absolutely. We could do that. You could do that with by putting in cellular services, a module inside those water meters. You're getting real-time feeds. If there's a leak because all of a sudden it's running out the door, right? And you're going, what, this guy it's not supposed to be using that much water. And you're using it. So it can help you identify where leaks are potentially coming from. And then finally, I think you're also talking about, if you're using RF, a person in a truck driving around collecting the water meters readings. I think if you do the cellular, you don't need to drive around anymore, right? You're being more efficient. You're saving money that way.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if they drive around anymore. I think radio frequencies increased enough to where they can do it just remotely now. Yeah, and that's okay. I thought the same thing too. I'm still confused on what they do with the radio frequency. I think it sounds antiquated that we're using radio frequency, which reminds me of AM, FM stations. I mean, who's listening to that now? We're on Spotify. We're on these different digital channels. I mean, I listen to FM once in a while in my car, that kind of stuff. But radio frequencies and these meters are depreciating so fast, 20%, not collecting information. We're losing the information on these meters, and cities are losing revenue. It's a cash register for them, as I've talked to other companies like M.E. Simpson. And it's just they're not keeping up. And so cities, utilities are losing money. You know what they're doing? We got to increase the billing for everybody. Everybody's paying. So that's a huge void, and where we can improve smart city is increase billable, utility billings, increase billable rates, stuff like that, and use accurate meters maybe to supplement that with your connectivity at Helix. That's just one thing I wanted to point out for you guys to think about. Anyway, we can talk about that off air down the road, but got some ideas. And so we're at 30 minutes already, and usually we got to end it at 30. What's the best way to get a hold of you guys and reach out to Helix if there's anything, someone wants to know more about with what you guys do? John?
Yeah, I mean, you can always call us at the office at 1-855-945-1997. You can email sales@helixwireless.co. You could talk to Mishu because he's always here, always working.
Love it. Francis,
Absolutely.
any way to you want people to contact you, or you want them to call John?
Yeah, call the office. I'm here every day, 855-945-1997. You could email sales@helixwireless.co. Go on the website, fill out the contact form, whatever is easiest for you. We're ready to pick up the phone and figure out something for you.
Figure out the solution. I love it, guys. You guys at Helix are doing amazing things, and so happy to have you on this webisode series, and look forward to the next one because we got a lot more to talk about, guys. That's for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks for joining me, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Chad.
Hold on. Let me end.